We have this article, the making of a linguicide. I have heard this word for the first time, death of a language. And it is by Ajay Saini, an anthropologist, and with Abbi. I think everybody must know this lady. The Nicobaris resettled against their wishes after 2004 tsunami. We have already talked about them in our last video. Have since longed to return to their former homes. And this is a common story. But their very lands are now earmarked for the mega project. When indigenous languages disappear, centuries of environmental knowledge, sustainable practices, cognitive abilities of fine demarcations, and cultural insights vanish. Again, as a whole culture. Friends, last week we had a video on Andaman and Nicobar Islands. I told you that we will have more details uh, from straight from the horse's mouth. The lady, uh, formerly secretary of NOTA as well as of Environment Forum. But before we start, we have some interesting but really concerning news. Like I've been telling you, I have made a video on nomadic and semi-nomadic and all those denotified tribes. And I have already advocated that their number may be as much as or maybe more than the STs. And these are the people who deserve to be served first. Their condition may match with many of the PVTGs, but there has been no concern. In that video I told you that many of them don't have Aadhaar, no voter card, no identity for themselves, you can say. And this first news that out of our scope of Nicobar, this news, it was in by BBC Hindi, 26 December 25. They have taken up the cause. Where are Indian journalists and anthropologists, of course? They are worried. Many of them, they don't have voter card, and some of them, they got it in 2010. So, what will happen to them after the SIR? That has to be the great concern, and BBC Hindi has raised this issue. I think I should thank them in particular. This is the issue that must be taken up by anthropologists, social scientists, others, NGOs, everybody concerned. This is a serious matter. Then I must apologize. I told you anthropologists are not taking up the issue. For the first time, we are having in frontline the coming issue, 15th January next year issue. We have this article, the making of a linguicide. I have heard this word for the first time, death of a language. And it is by Ajay Saini, an anthropologist, and with Abbi. I think everybody must know this lady, very senior. And after Professor Devi, next I think should be Abbi. And she has done a lot of work in Andaman Nicobar. The mega project underway in Great Nicobar is not merely impeding ecological catastrophe, it portends a profound linguistic and cultural erosion, risking the loss of an ancient languages shaped by communities' enduring connections with their forests, coastline, and the subtle rhythms of daily existence. It summarizes as a whole. Now, this article, I told you, January 15 date that is there in the front line. It will be available to everybody and everybody can read. I'm just going through the headlines which are there to confirm that they are anthropologists. I have taken the bottom line. Ajay Sani is an anthropology teaches at the Center of Rural Development and Technology, IT Delhi, and Abhi, linguist, serves as the expert committee of the UNESCO World Atlas of Languages, and is a former professor and chair of the Center for the Linguistics at JNU. What do they say? Linguistic structures like DNA carry traces of the distant past, often holding knowledge unknown even to their speakers. Those who speak not necessarily know the nuances of what is being said. When a language dies, the loss extends far beyond grammar and vocabulary. I've been telling, death of a language means death of a culture. And the way languages are dying today, at the rate at which they are dying, I think by 2050, almost 90% of the world's languages would be lost. When indigenous languages disappear, centuries of environmental knowledge, sustainable practices, cognitive abilities of fine demarcations, and cultural insights vanish. Again, as a whole culture, the Shompen, a particularly vulnerable PBTG, face a grave threat to their ancient language, a linguistic isolate within no known relations to any other tongue or language family. The language that they speak, I think Abhi has already written about them. Their language is unique. You do not find any parallel anywhere in the world. And take it from me that after this project comes, the language would be lost. The Nicobaris resettled against their wishes after 2004 tsunami. We have already talked about them in our last video. Have since longed to return to their former homes. And this is a common story. But their very lands are now earmarked for the mega project. This happens whenever a displacement takes place. The immediate generation want to go back. The next generation, they may find the new place as their comfort zone, but this conflict continues. Now, these are some of the highlights of this article. But the major issue, I told you, I'll take up from the article from Wire, and that is, so this is the article I was talking about. The caption is very clear. The Great Nicobar Tribes, a time to live or a time to die. Question is obvious, answer also is obvious, and is written by Meena Gupta. And why I authenticate this? Because she has been a secretary not only in the Ministry of Tribal Affairs but also in the Ministry of Forest. So she knows both the views, and she is very categorical. And many of the things she had said, they have already been there on the scene, and we have also included in our videos. So we'll just summarize. In preparation for the many proposed development projects on Great Nicobar Island, the government has decided that a trunk infrastructure road is first to be constructed. This road will run through tribal reserve land, reserve forest land, deemed forest, and privately owned land. All the story, beautiful photos are there, but the island of Great Nicobar hardly known to the public. See, government plan is becoming known to the people now. The government is launching all these projects. These are already there, known publicly. At the cost of they claim it is around say 80,000 crore or so. I think it is go beyond 1 lakh or maybe more than that. Satisfying thing is that dissenting voices among our anthropologists, ecologists, forest security experts, seismologists, former defense personnel, and administrators. I don't know if the voices are there. They have been very shrill. What does it say? They'll destroy enormous tract of ancient rainforest, increase pace of climate change, extinguish forever animal and plant found nowhere else except in the Great Nicobar, and above all, ring the death knell for the ancient tribes living on the island, the Great Nicobaris, and in particular, Shompen, fishing and foraging tribe classified as PBTG, a distinctive people whose one and only home for centuries has been the island of Great Nicobar. I have no words to express the knowledge that she has, perfectly anthropological, I would say. The development, the kind of development we have, the problem has been that all this development has been human centric, and even amongst the humans, we the people, your constitution says, they are not. They are somebody sub sub subhuman primates, I would say. They least be considered for, because I have told n number of times that they do not form a vote bank. It is their home. Why we are insisting? I told you previously in another video that there are n number of other islands also. Our government has never made it clear why this particular one, and uh, creating habitation for more than 60,000 outsiders. I don't know. I don't understand what is the need. In preparation for many proposed development projects on the grid, the government has decided that all that has been there, a social impact assessment study. This is interesting. Social impact assessment study of the proposed trunk infrastructure road and the land it proposes to acquire was taken up by Atlas Management Consultancy Services Private Limited under the Land Acquisition Act of 2013 in May-June 2023, followed by public hearing in mid-July in 2 revenue villages on the island. The assessment had 2 major flaws. Firstly, it confines itself to the private land to be acquired in 6 villages, lands which are owned by settlers, the persons who have been brought in from the Indian mainland and encouraged to make their home on the island, does not pay any attention to 2 indigenous tribal communities who are the original inhabitants of the island, have lived there for centuries, and whose ownership over the land is of an entirely different character. रिसेंटली मैंने एक शॉर्ट देखी थी, एक अमेरिकन गवर्नमेंट का रिप्रेजेंटेटिव, दे आर ट्राइंग टू कन्विंस अ नेटिव कि आप अपनी जगह छोड़ दो, आपको जो है एक अलग जगह देंगे, फ्लैट्स देंगे, ये जगह सरकार को चाहिए। वो पूछता है कि ये जगह है किसकी, कहते हैं सरकार की। ने पूछा सरकार ने किससे खरीदी है? बड़े सिंपल भोले तरीके से उसने पूछा। अगर सरकार ने खरीदी नहीं है तो सरकार की कैसे हो जाएगी? हम लोग जो सैकड़ों साल से यहाँ रह रहे हैं, अगर ये हमारी नहीं है, और जो सरकार अभी हाल ही में आई है वो उसकी कैसे हो गई? ऑफिसर हैड नो रिप्लाई। और यहाँ भी वही है। Ownership of land by the tribal communities, especially isolated and self-contained tribal communities, do not take the same form as in the world we are used to, जो मैं अभी बता रहा था. One would have thought that the SIA working on a more or less pristine island inhabited by the long isolated tribes would have at least taken some notice of the social impact of the acquisition of not only the private land owned by the settlers, but also on the impact of acquisition of land, both ancestral land owned by the Great Nicobaris as well as the lands being taken over from tribal reserve primarily used by the Stompin. Now, tribal land in general, they never earmark. They have a territory which is crudely defined in terms of geographical indicators. And they don't insist that this belongs to them only. They don't insist that outsiders won't be welcome. They are, but not that they got to replace them. This is what is happening in the northeast. The Bangladeshis, they came gradually and started replacing the tribals, and that created the problem in the northeast. Unfortunately, there is no such assessment. Although social impact assessment report does mention the extensive deliberations conducted with two tribal communities, it does not appear to be true. The tribal council of the island consists of Great Nicobaris was unaware of these deliberations, and even when this was subsequently pointed out by them in writing to the director, Social Welfare Andaman and Nicobar Administration, no heed was taken. Actually, all this has already been reported in Frontline, but still, just because I told you straight from the horse's mouth, all these details anybody can read uh, in the Wire article. The utter disregard for the tribal reserve and for Champagne people for whose protection and benefit the reserve was created is astonishing. Are the Champagne not people of India? Are their lives any less valuable than those of other Indians? Are the needs of the other people for tourism, for trade, for business more important than theirs? Does the government realize that the incursions into the tribal reserve or changing its boundaries will spell doom for Champagne and leading inevitably to their extinction? And are they quite unperturbed by it? By the speed with which the government is going ahead with the Great Nicobaris projects, it does seem so. सरकार में किसी ने भी प्रॉपरली एनालाइज नहीं किया, लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट का फॉलो नहीं किया, सोशल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट नहीं किया। सब लोग जानते हैं, ब्यूरोक्रेसी नहीं बोलेगी, सरकार तो खैर सरकार है। अगर प्रधान ने कह दिया तो किसी की मजाल नहीं होती, सब लोग उसमें फायदा ही ढूंढते हैं। ये सारी हमारे हक की चीज है। सरकार की एक चीज जो लोकतंत्र में होती है, जैसे आजकल हमारे यहाँ है कि भाई ठीक है, 5 साल बाद आपकी बारी आएगी, आप देख लीजिएगा। तो प्रधान सेवक तो फिर सेवक नहीं रह जाता भाई, वो तो मालिक हो जाता है। अभी तक कोई जस्टिफिकेशन इस प्रोजेक्ट का कहीं भी पब्लिश नहीं हुआ, हालांकि प्रधानमंत्री जी के नाम से एक आर्टिकल जरूर छपा था, पर वो सारा वही एक ही विजन है। एक तोता रटन से जो होता है, सारे का सारा वही बोलते हैं। जरूरत ये है कि हम सिंसियरली जो है, अगर हम चाहते हैं कि अब खैर चाहने से कुछ नहीं होगा, वो लेकर के आएंगे। कम से कम जो बाहरी लोगों को जो वहां पे बसाने की जो बात है, और ये जो इनको डिस्प्लेस करके जहां वो जो है, आप उतना बड़ा जितना एरिया सरकार को चाहिए होता है, एक्चुअली उससे कई गुना ज्यादा वो एक्वायर करते हैं, और बाद में जो है फिर डिस्प्लेस को वापस लाना मुश्किल हो जाता है, क्योंकि नई जनरेशन जो है दे गेट अडेप्टेड टू द न्यू सिचुएशन उनके लिए, जबकि पुरानी जो है वो वापस जाना चाहती है, तो वो मसले जो हैं और कॉम्प्लेक्स हो जाते हैं। आई विश अभी भी शायद सरकार एक बार लेट देयर बी एन ओपन डिस्कशन। आप विज्ञान भवन में बुलाइए सभी स्टेक होल्डर्स को, पब्लिकली अनाउंस कीजिए, लेट एवरीबडी कम, इंक्लूडिंग इकोनॉमिस्ट, इंक्लूडिंग पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स, सोशल साइंटिस्ट जितने भी हैं वो सारे, इंक्लूडिंग दीज पीपल, इंक्लूडिंग देयर वेल विशर्स, एवरीवन आई वुड से। फिर उसके बाद देखिए हमारे पास क्या कोई चारा नहीं है, डोंट वी हैव एनी अल्टरनेटिव? प्लीज गिव ए थॉट। थैंक यू।